So we're going to read a little bit more of Maisey Yates, I decided. So we did a little bit of the book. I didn't, say that we were going to do something, didn't. We did a little bit of the magazine, and now we're going to do a little bit more of the book. Try to make some headway. Okay, this is page 99 we're starting back on. And we'll probably go through what page is this? 117. So it's not too far away, but here we go. Whatever's going on with you and your boy, you should probably figure that out. She was going to tell him that he was not her boy, but she had the feeling at this point it was all futile. I'll take that beer and you can keep your life advice, she said. Sammy, if you ever want to come flirt with me when you don't have someone else on your mind, you're welcome to. She took the beer and offered him a scowl before retreating. Did he tell you no? Ryder asked. I didn't ask for a baby. I asked for a beer, she huffed. I want to go home. You got a beer. You can't go on to the street with it. She narrowed her eyes at him, hoping it might hone in her irritation to a fine point, but he'd be able to feel. You made this weird. I made this weird. You're the one who asked me. Not seriously. The look on his face made her feel like she swallowed a boulder. He looked down for a second, then backed up, his tone slightly hushed. I made it weird that you're out here trying to find the right guy to get you pregnant. Yes, she said, rounding on him, not caring that they were in the middle of the bar, likely drawing attention to themselves. First with your talk of fun, and then with all your propositions. Proposals, oh my gosh. Did you propose to me? She let her hand hold up the beer and fall slack at her side. If you want to think of it that way, I don't want to think of it all. I'll tell you what, he said, I'm going to go home. Iris can pick you up when you're done, if you don't find a man to take you home. But if you think about what I said, and you find anyone in here that you think would be better than me, fine, I'll let you go. But if I don't think you will, because I think you and I both know you can protest all you want about me protecting you and taking care of you and making sacrifices for you, but you want it. I'm the one who's been there for you all this time. Don't tell me that you don't want me to be there for you now. And then Ryder turned on his heel and walked toward the exit. And the son of a gun actually walked out the door and left her standing there. She just couldn't believe it. She looked around the bar, took a swig of her beer, and no, she didn't want any of the men here, not even a little. Not even at all. She felt like she'd been hollowed out, like Ryder had reached inside her and taken everything that she contained and everything she knew and just stolen it from her. She had no idea who she was now, no idea how the world kept spinning when it was so clearly knocked off its axis. And so she did the very stupid thing. She turned on her heel and ran out to the street. Ryder, she shouted, don't leave me here. I thought you were finished with me for the night. Stop being an idiot. I don't want to call your sister to come pick me up, and I don't want to go home with some random dude. Stop acting like you've had a personality transplant. You're the one who's changing things, he said. Just take me home, she said. I want a do-over. Let's just pretend this whole evening didn't happen. He laughed. Fine, whatever you want, Sammy. They walked beside each other in silence to his truck. What did you do with your beer? I just left it on the table. Didn't you really want it anyway? I just wanted to irritate you. Yeah, I knew that, he said. Then why did you let me do it? Hell if I know, Sammy. Sometimes it's easier than other times to ignore your shenanigans. Shenanigans? You know, that's the problem, Ryder. That's what you think this is. You think I'm full of shenanigans, and you think that I'm selfish, and you think that I'm immature, and for one moment you don't think that maybe I'm responding to the same kind of thing that you are when you say you don't want to get married. When you talk about how you're just done with life that you've lived before, with the pain, with the past. Maybe that's what's wrong with me. Maybe I'm just done. I'm done being the person that my dad beat me into being. I've been done with that, but a lot of my life since then has been built on that reaction to that. And I'm tired of that too. I just want to find my own way, my own life. I don't think that's terribly difficult to understand. And I don't think that you have the right to look at me and decide what I want and what I feel and what I need are shenanigans. The things that I really want, are things you have to save me from. She got in his truck and slammed the door behind her. It hurts me, she said quietly as he started the truck and pulled away from the curb. He didn't say anything for a long while. Then they got onto a 2-lane high road headed outside of town and away from the main street, away from the bar. And then it says, farther and farther away from the scene of all that had happened tonight, closer to the familiarity of Hope Springs Ranch, where maybe there was sanity would prevail. But she didn't know if she wanted that, because she just felt so raw and scrubbed the wrong way. She didn't know if she wanted to keep fighting or if she wanted to wrap herself in a blanket of home and pretend that nothing of this had happened. Well, the thing is, Sammy, he said with a quiet voice, firm and steady, you seem to think that the only reason I might have accepted was I was protecting you. Well, because you made it very clear that you don't want to have kids. Maybe I don't like the idea of having you having them with someone else. Maybe I do like the idea the kid should be mine. She had no idea what to say to that. She had no idea what he meant. And still she had didn't think that she was wrong because of all this. With the same old possessiveness stuff, Ryder was hers, and she felt like for that for a long time. But she knew pretty firmly Ryder also felt like she belonged to him, and she had a feeling it was more of that than it was anything else. Don't, she said. That's not fair. Don't put that on me, and don't you mean it. You don't mean you really want any of this. You just know that? Yes, I do, because I know that you have been through, I care about you, and I want you to be involved in my life, and looping you in this major decision is part of that, being accepted. You're retired, a retired old man, living in his golden years. You're in your 30s, and you don't want anything to change. You don't want to lose a comfortable relationship, a comfortable setup that you've had. You're not worried about having a baby. You're worried about things changing. I said as much. I said I didn't want things to change. Well, you can't have your way, not in this. It's going to change, and I'm going to do things my way, the way I want, the way that makes sense to me. Let's see here. I'm trying to think why I didn't make a stopping point, which is unusual. Usually I make a stopping point, but I didn't here. Okay, maybe that was the stopping point. We'll continue going for a little bit here. My eyes are tired. I'm old, but we'll continue going. He turned off the main highway, pulled beneath the sign that said Hope Springs Ranch. It was a beautiful sign, one that had been there since before his parents died. Silhouettes of horses, cowboys all around the letters. She waited for the comfort of home to wash over her, but when they turned onto the property, it didn't come. Because the man that should have helped her provide that homey feeling was like a stranger to her right now. Which was maybe a touch dramatic. It didn't quite feel like that, but not right now. When he pulled to the house, she got quickly and began to walk towards the camper. She could hear heavy footsteps on the gravel behind her. She knew he was following her. She paused, letting out a long, slow breath. Did you have something else to say? Because I think we should sleep on it. Go ahead and go to sleep, he said, but you ask yourself what you need to, and then ask yourself who you think is going to be able to help give it to you. Ryder left her standing there alone in the middle of the drive after that. She walked back to her camper, slowly replaying the words over in her mind. Think over what you need and think about who it is going to give it to you. She knew what he meant. He meant who was going to be able to help her provide stability, who was going to be her counterpoint. And truth be told, she thought of raising a child. She always saw a figure in her child's life being Ryder. The influence on that kid had always been him. He meant health insurance, he meant practicalities, but for some reason she kept flashing to the conversation they had in Austin, that bar, the one that she tried to avoid. So we're going to make a stopping point there. Go to the next paperclip. Speak of the devil, she muttered, kicking a stone to the side of the trying to affect the best detached look. So it's ice today, Ryder said. What? You're ice or fire, Sammy Marshall, and very few people ever see the ice. But I'm lucky enough to be on the receiving end of it every so often. Well, you deserve it. And you're the last person I want to see right now. Mostly because when she closed her eyes right now, all she could see mostly was him. Mostly because she thought about who should be the father of her baby. He seemed to be the only answer. No. There were risks that she could take in life, and had many of them gladly, but compromising her relationship with Ryder, if he married you, he would have to keep you for the basically ever. She felt a giant ridge. She felt rent right down the ridge of the middle with thought, a jagged streak of terror on one side binding a white-hot need on the other. She was also starting to see herself that way with Ryder. That might, and lame was about the only word for it. She scowled. Anyway, what do you want? Just checking in. My answer is still no. I mean, we could do some kind of agreement, I guess, but we can't do marriage. No, he said, if you want to do this, then it has to be my way. Why? It was so irritating and ridiculous that what had started out as a suggestion she made on a whim had turned out right to an outright obsession. She was angry at him, angry at herself, because the more she thought about it, the more she realized that he would be the perfect dad for her baby. Because Ryder was perfect, because he knew how to take care of people, because he knew how to take care of her. and she refused to think of any other things because they were complicated, messy, and they made her chest hurt. You're asking me why I'm acting in character? What about you? Why would you ask that of me if you didn't want this response? She thought that he couldn't possibly strip her closer to the bone, but then there he went. He made her feel seen. He made her see herself. She didn't like it. I didn't think you would take me seriously. Was it a joke? The seriousness in his gaze stole her breath. No, she said, I don't know why I said it, because you would be a good dad, because you're protective, and because you're an old retired guy. All those things that I said to you, I know it was not very nice of me, but the thing is, you compliment me, but I thought you didn't want a man to help raise your baby. I don't, she said. I mean, not really. You do, though, secretly. He's right. You harbored a fantasy of all this working out as some big, unconventional family in your head. And if you didn't, then you would have just gone to a sperm bank like a normal person. But you're not handling this like a normal person, is what she's telling herself. She tried to ignore that needling voice in the back of her mind, and then another one. You expected him to take care of you, but you also expected that you could get your way. That cut her in two, because she had to look at herself critically and ask if that was true. Or maybe she didn't. Maybe she could just abandon everything right now. Everything could go on as it had before, and nothing needed to change. We should do something less complicated, she said, hushed. I've been fighting with you a lot more than I want to, which means fighting with you at all. I don't like it. I don't want to be in a fight. Tough to avoid when you started a fight, baby, he said. It became something it shouldn't have, and I should have not asked you for your help with this. I should not have accepted it. It's just weird. You're right. I didn't need to involve you in my boom life when we crossed some lines. She used her best to calm, rational voice, but we won't cross them anymore. You're the most important person in the world to me, Ryder, she said softly, and I couldn't stand it if something affected that. He didn't say anything else. He only stared at her with dark, fathomless eyes. I have to go. I have a custom order that I need to get to work on. I imagine you have some work to do. He nodded once. That I can do. Okay, talk to you later. She slipped past him into the camper, and it was only after she settled it in with all the fittings and gemstones in front of her that she realized he hadn't agreed to not let it affect them, and she feared that it already had. We've got a few small pages here marked, so maybe we can knock a few small pages out. Okay, page 168. It could be just a part of who they were, and maybe part of who they were meant to be. She had believed in fate, in the good of the world, working to create a better end, that the hands of time had a point and a purpose, and they were driving everything toward that inevitable place where love would conquer all. Because wasn't that every story? Wasn't that the essence of fate? Faith, a deep, real belief that something seemed to grow from the center of the earth and end up through the ground, the roots of humanity? And there were villains, there always would be. Men like her father who were selfish and wanted nothing to do with good or beautiful things in life. But it wasn't that the world was made of. It wasn't the deep essence of or truth of what it was meant to be to a person. And believing like that she had to believe that her life was headed somewhere good. That had been from the moment Ryder had reached his hand out to her in that stall all those years ago. It had to be. Okay. Page 182. I don't know what you want me to say. Life is hard and it's lonely sometimes. And I'll tell you this. I do know what it's like you to have a living parent that you still can't see or touch or have a relationship with. They lost everyone, and that's tragic. Yeah, ours just don't want us. So all I'm saying is, well, nothing. I don't have anything to say, not about this. Well, good night then. She started to walk down the steps. He was different before you came. She stopped and looked over her shoulder. Huh? Ryder, he has been different. Before he met you, you taught him to smile. She laughed. Not well. He still doesn't do it often. Before you, he didn't do it at all. He stood then. Good night. That was Logan and Sammy having a conversation. Okay. We're going to get to page 204 and call it a night. So this is my extra St. Patrick's Day trick for y'all, because I'm not wearing green, so technically I should be pinstripe. You take care of us, he said. Do I? Because it seems to me like you're always taking care of me. He shook his head slowly. I was drowning, he said. His voice was rough. When my parents died, I really don't remember that night very well, except I remember Pansy's old boss, my dad's friend, Chief something or other, coming to the door, except he wasn't the chief then. He was just another officer. And then I answered it, and he looked so grim. I knew enough about my dad's job to know that those kind of visits meant. But all of them, Sammy, all of them, my dad, my mom, my aunt, my Uncle Logan's mom, everyone I just remember. It was like being shot. The burst of pain and impact like you don't think anything could possibly survive. And then the silence, nothing, just numbness while you wait to bleed out. And then the strangest thing happened. Sugar cubes started showing up in my barn. He lowered his head. You know, it's embarrassing. I never told anybody, but at first I thought maybe it was my mom's ghost or something. Not a ghost. I mean, never had the sense she was a ghost. Her soul, an angel, because I couldn't figure out where else the sugar could come from. It was just so strange and funny, and that night I found you. She blinked hard, trying to keep from dissolving into tears right there in the back of the truck with an injured calf between them. Were you disappointed? I mean, I'm not exactly a brush with the supernatural. He shook his head. I always thought you might be. It took me a while to be sure that you were real, and not just, don't tell me that you thought I was an angel. He huffed a laugh. A fairy, not an angel. You are too dang pretty and not to be in the heavenly way. That compliment, delivered with a slightly wicked smile, made her stomach turn over. What did he mean by that? Did he mean that he wanted her even then? He even said as much. And then when she had to come to his bed and he wanted her. But this was still slightly different. Because for one, it was easy to imagine that he just wanted her because she was a woman and she had gotten into bed with him and he was a man. And it was a very basic response to somewhat become boom boom wise. Why wasn't I an angel? She pressed. Because the things I wanted to do to you would have thrown me into jail. Hell. Oh, sorry. Hell, jail, it's all the same, right? She felt both satisfied and unnerved by the response. Oh. But you know that that wasn't the important thing. The thing was, it felt like everything was dark until you came. You were something else. Sunshine coming through the darkness. And all the more importantly than wanting you, I forgot that quickly. Especially when I found out that you just didn't come out from behind a flower in a garden one day and decide to join the family. When I found out that your dad, you'd have taken care of me, Sammy said. They never talked about that night, ever. It was unspoken between them as well. All of this was, except this was now spoken. They had touched each other, and things had changed, and the truck continued to rumble, the calf between them occasionally making plaintive bleat. It was ludicrous time to have a conversation, which made it about as good a time to say, I wanted to kill him, Ryder said. You almost did, no less than he did to you, Sammy. I'll never get over seeing those bruises on your face, knowing he put them there. Dang it, I still wish I would have killed him. He's dead now anyway, and we had all this time, and if you would have killed him, you'd be in prison, and we wouldn't be here. He shook his head. No, we wouldn't be. That felt loaded right about now, because where were they exactly? She didn't even know. And we're going to pick up tomorrow on page, oh, this is short paragraph. We'll do it. That was the problem. Fundamentally, romance had never excited her that much because she felt like she had seen too much of the negative outcome, the potential for disaster. She had never really engaged in romance. She had all those words for what was simply a desperate attempt to deal with loneliness inside her heart. Yes, she had the connection with Ryder and his family and had all the kinds of different emotional needs met through them. But it wasn't like being held by someone, and so she had gone out and had a physical relationship as well. She had played at a light romantic connection that she knew weren't going anywhere, so that she knew she could fill the different gaps in her life and her soul without anything becoming all-consuming. Okay, you've talked me into it. We'll do a few more pages here. Okay. So, there's a moment going on between Ryder and Sammy, if I remember here correctly, and the meddling Rose, who thought she was going to fix Sammy up with Logan, is quite disappointed because she gets to see a little exchange between Sammy and Ryder. Okay, it says, well, why don't you take a sandwich and be on your way? Sammy held it out to Rose skeptically, like it might have cooties. The sandwich was not used for anything untoward, Sammy said. Rose blanched. Honestly, that doesn't make it any better. That didn't help at all, because now I'm wondering about what could have possibly done with the sandwich that it would be considered. No, I don't want it. Enjoy your sandwiches. I'm not going to say anything to anyone. You're right. You didn't tell anyone. Just had a bad luck of walking in while you were, well, eating each other's faces. Eloquent, Sammy said. Charming, Ryder added. I try to be both, Rose said. As often as possible. The opportunity so rarely presents itself, and yet here we are. You're mostly mad because you got it wrong about Logan, Ryder said. Well, she said, her visible deflation at her confirming Ryder's statement. Rose didn't like to be wrong. I'll have to think of someone else for him. Will you? Ryder asked, his tone dry. Yes, he's actually like a brother to me and one of my dearest friends in the entire world when I don't want to punch his face. So yes, I've been scheming a little bit to make him happy, and I thought maybe it might help Sammy too. Or you could just give up meddling, Sammy said. Well, that would be boring, Rose said, brightening. At least this isn't boring. So glad we could entertain you, Ryder said. Now get on, get out of here, get. He said the last one like he was trying to get rid of a perfectly ridiculous dog. Rose just didn't have to be asked again. That left the two of them and 4 sandwiches. Well, that was, who cares, he asked. Don't you think it will be awkward when they don't know that I don't know that this is going to run its course? I'm not sure that I'm thinking of that way, he said. You're not? There's no point in thinking that way. You're in my life the way that you've always been, and sure, things are going to be a little different the way that we've all been with this, but you're going to be in my life, Sammy, and that's just the truth of it. You can count on it. Count on me. I do, she said. I mean, I trust you. I do. Then don't think of it that way. I'm not ashamed of anything we've done, and I'm not ashamed of you. Well, I'm not ashamed of you, she said. I didn't mean to imply that you might be, but I just wanted you to know that I'm not, and I don't care if they know. There's a lot underneath that, she was sure. He spent so many years sacrificing for them, she could see why he didn't want to do it now. How many women have you been with, do you think? He drew back, snorting. What the hell kind of question is that? I mean, you've spent a really long time with just the kind of being good to everybody, and now you're going out of town to do hookups and whatever, and I know you haven't had relationships. I don't know, he said. I mean, I hook up. I have since high school. I just don't count them. She nodded. All right, same, but like those things were different than this, but those guys I sort of knew, and I didn't know, you know. I expect that has something to do with it, he said. I thought that I understood boom boom, but this feels totally like different things. Yeah, because it is, he said. Then they set about to eating their food, and she had to agree with him. This was different, like a different thing entirely. So yeah, maybe they didn't have to try to see through the inevitable conclusion. Maybe all they had to do was be in the moment. She was really, really liking the moment. In fact, she liked it so much more than any other moment she'd ever been in all of her life. And that was something to hang on to. Okay, we've done some major improvement of the book. I say we got about 3/4 left of the book, which is still a good portion, but we've made a good dent in the book sharing. So happy St. Patrick's Day. I hope that I've made you happy with some extra videos. Hopefully we're going to get closer and closer to the end of these books. That's my big hope. I hope that you have a happy, healthy St. Patrick's Day. May you wear something green so you don't get pinched. And stay safe, stay healthy, stay well. Wear your mask. Wish you well. God bless.